everyone. So today I wanted to do a video talking about butch oppression and femme privilege and just those kind of topics. And I have an extensive bunch of notes. So this video will probably be maybe a little bit more put together than my normal videos. And the reason for this is just I think this subject, there's a lot to cover. And I don't want to leave anything out because I think it's all important when we're talking about butch oppression. Specifically because butch women are very invisible, and I just want to cover everything that I think can cover really, from the perspective of someone who isn't butch. The reason I'm doing this vid is because I see all the time, you know, it never goes away, but I always see a lot of butch bashing and scapegoating and hatred just going on in general in society, but also in like radical feminist communities and feminist spaces, that sort of thing. And I want to, I don't know, do something about it, inform about it, because I think what's going on is that a lot of people don't really understand what it means to be butch in the first place. So I'm just going to kind of talk about it from my perspective and kind of give you what I think. So first off, I want to talk about butch and femme as categories. Like, what do these things actually mean? I think these are ways of being a woman, and the thing with being butch is it's not a role, it's not even really an identity. Although butch women often will identify as such, like, it's just a way of being, you know, and it's basically, how I view it is that you're either butch or you're femme, and butches are a rare minority. And how I view this basically is that butches are women that have never been feminized properly. They've never really taken to it. They've always resisted it. They look incredibly unnatural, feminized. It's actually, really kind of humiliating for them to be feminized. And femme women, they don't necessarily have to be feminine. They can be, they can reject feminine accoutrements and qualifiers, but you can tell, that they've been feminized, and if they needed to pass for het, they could. But butch women don't really have that privilege of being able to be made invisible. They're obviously lesbian. They've always been obviously lesbian, and because of that, they get a lot of oppression that I think a lot of lesbians otherwise, have at least kind of been able to not have if they want. So I think that's important to understand, that, when someone like me, who is a radical lesbian feminist, will talk about butch and femme and talk about butch oppression, I'm not talking about role playing. And I just want to say this too, butch and femme are not about role playing, at least not in my perspective. I'm a femme woman, but I'm not into role playing. I'm a feminist. And the thing is, most lesbians that engage in role playing are femmes playing and role playing together. It's femme on femme role playing, and one will don this kind of masculine identity and one won't, but it's not butch and femme. So yeah, I just want to point that out, and it's important to kind of understand the difference. Masculinity and male attributes are projected onto butch women to their detriment, and butches, like any other group of women, can have good or bad politics. So it's very harmful for them to be scapegoated, because this increases isolation, it increases invisibility, and it affects their self-esteem. I've met quite a few butches in my life who've had to deal with, like, navigating not being seen as a woman sometimes. That invisibility there is harmful, especially when you identify as a woman and you are a woman, when you are, a lot of them are feminist as well, because I think, they understand what bullshit gender is, just inherently, they always have. And I think, too, it really should be recognized that butch women's refusal to be feminized is a profoundly radical act. The fact that women could or butch girls resisted so strongly the socialization of femininity, that says something about their consciousness. It says something about how clearly they see things. They're very, very much have a strong sense of self. And I think that is something that makes butch women, very, I don't know, they should be profoundly considered to be profoundly radical just because of that alone. It's something to respect, it's something to admire, it's not something to, in any way, degrade, and I see it being degraded as if it's not important, or as if, that because they weren't feminized successfully, there's something weird about them, There's something weird about us, women who have been feminized. Let's be clear. Let's reverse that reversal. And so much of this is reversal, too. It's a reversal of reality. How femme privilege is overlooked, and butches are treated as if they're masculine or male identified. It's awful. Honestly, it's an awful reversal. And also, I think too, femmes who wish to show solidarity with butch women should take steps to do the same. The more we all look like dykes, the more we're not all going along with this crap, the more we all outright reject it, the easier it is to be a butch lesbian, The more visible we are as lesbians, the easier it is for those of us who can't hide, I think that's also important to recognize. If you can, to whatever extent, be visible. So yeah, now I'm going to talk about femme privilege. I have a couple pages of notes here. Femme privilege is something that exists in relation to butch women. It's not oh, you're privileged to be feminine. But yeah, in terms of women who aren't feminine, yeah, you definitely are privileged. And going along with femininity makes women's lives easier in a patriarchal culture. If you're seen to be conforming to what is expected, you're not going to raise as many eyebrows, you're not going to get as much hostility. And any woman who has experimented at all with their gendered presentation, knows that this is true. Goddamn well that if you don't feminize yourself, you are treated differently than when you do. And you are generally treated worse when you don't feminize yourself. So think about that. Now think about that in relation to women who just can't feminize themselves for whatever reason. Think about how difficult their lives must be. They have to deal with that daily. They don't have any escape. They can't put on a dress and some lipstick and be, invisible. They stick out. And sticking out as a dyke, is a difficult thing to do in this world. It's not easy. I don't care what people say. It's hard. It's hard daily. And because femininity is seen as this innate quality of women, butch women are viewed as not women in some way. All lesbians kind of get this from time to time. You're viewed as not quite female. Butch women, their lesbianism is totally essentialized. They're constantly, seen as just totally fucking I don't know, just different, weird, queer, odd. And because of this, they receive most of the hatred that's directed at lesbians generally, the few times, I mean, I've had situations where I've like been on Twitter, for example, and I've tweeted about like how women can't commit rape. Just specifically speaking, to digress a little bit, rape is a male act. It's an act involving a penis, you know. Does that mean women can't sexually assault people? No. Does that mean women can't do fucked up, vile things? No. But rape specifically, the crime itself, is a male act, and I think it's important to keep it that way. It's the wielding of the penis as the violent instrument. So yeah, I tweeted this, like, you know, women can't rape. It's you know, this is a male act, and I had quite a few men dogpile me saying that, like, if a butch woman if a butch dyke put a strap-on and fucked you, wouldn't it be rape? Like, and it was just like, you know, that's the mentality that a lot of heterosexuals have with butch women. They view them as like these imposter men, and it's sick when lesbian feminists do this, you know, or just feminists. Like, you should know better, you should do better. And you should be against that because they're women, and it's such a harmful fucking thing to even think. And this is all fucking projection too. Like, that's the other thing of it. It's all projection. So yeah, in terms of butch femme relationship dynamics, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. There's a lot of attention, like, in terms of like role playing and identifying, or like butches who want femmes and femmes who want butch lovers. Like, you know, I know some lesbians like this, and in terms of that, like, sometimes I think there's a bit of role playing, because I do see, like, for example, femmes specifically who want butches, like, will date a femme who's playing at being butch but isn't butch. And kind of do that kind of like thing, and it looks really silly. But that being said, way too much attention is placed on the very rare phenomenon of butch femme relationships that are kind of that way, and especially by heterosexual feminists, I have to say. I've seen a lot of heterosexual feminists critique this stuff when your relationships with men are role-playing. You know what I mean? Like, all you're doing is role-playing. You're in a role, he's in a role. Why are you criticizing lesbians? It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. And, you know, I also think it's really heterosexist, because, you know, the views of butch femme relationships, like, that, like, so many feminists and, like, just heterosexual society in general has, is like, oh, the poor femmes are painted as these victims of these male acting butch dykes. And in reality, most of the time, and from what I've seen in butch femme relationships, the femme is usually in the driver's seat of these relationships. They're usually the dominant ones, you know, and, you know, they don't act like heterosexual women do in their relationships with butch women, and the butch women don't act like men. I mean, no butch woman acts like a man, so let's just get rid of that idea at all. But, like, it's just not what's going on. So I think it's a really big misunderstanding, and a projection, you know? Like, oh no, the queers are role-playing. Don't, you know, give them, like, crap for it, when, you know, that's all that heterosexuals do ever. You know, and this ignores, too, that when we're talking about, like, the role-playing that I think is destructive, it's usually two femmes together, you know, and it's like, many femmes are playing at being butch a lot of the time, and even in the media, this is a big problem, too, because the media has, like, no real actual depictions of butch women. Like, I can't even think off the top of my head of any, like, butch women that I've actually seen, you know, on TV and any shows, that sort of thing. Like, they don't exist. Even the fucking L Word didn't have any butches in it. Now, the group of women it was focusing on, I don't think you would find a butch woman in that kind of like clique of lesbians. You know, butches are also often very often working class, women from working class backgrounds. So, I mean, I think that's important to consider too. Not always, but a lot of the time. So yeah, what you often do see, they cast like femme actresses to play butch roles. Like some examples are Leah Delaria, who plays Big Boo on Orange is the New Black. Now, I love Leah Delaria. I'll just say that. Like, I think she's, you know, amazing, but I don't think she's butch. She could, if she wanted to, pass, you know, into society as a heterosexual woman. She could, and she is feminine in a lot of ways as well. She's an obvious dyke, and I love her. And she even has a butch tattoo, but she's not, you know? And it's kind of like, you know, okay. So she's an example. Another, of course, obvious one is Kate Moennig playing Shane on The L Word. Like, such a femme, such a pretty model girl, like playing a butch lesbian. Okay. And then Hilary Swank playing Tina Brandon, you know, as well, in Boys Don't Cry. Like, again, another example of a femme woman playing at being butch. It's very hard to see actual depictions of butch women anywhere, and even in like lesbian media that is produced by lesbians, you'll often see a lot of femmes playing at being butch in it. So it's just like, you know, it's important, I think, to recognize how invisible like butch women are, and to support butch women in whatever way you can, and to use your femme privilege to kind of like, you know, advocate for them. I also wanted to talk about this myth that all the butches are transitioning. You know, I'm not the only feminist to talk about this. Dirt, who runs the Dirt from Dirt blog, she's a butch lesbian, and she's made it kind of clear, you know, like the women who are generally transitioning or electing to transition anyway are, you know, feminine women, or like she calls like androgynous, you know, or tweener. She calls them tweener dykes. I think in a post I read about her. Anyway, not really advocating her stuff, but because she has attacked me quite a bit and been mean. But I also, you know, she has the right to her own opinion and stuff, and I also like support her even if like I've had those problems with her, because like she's a butch woman that's visible, and I think that's really important, you know, even if we have disagreements, really fundamental disagreements. I think the fact that she even just puts her face out there and is like visible and talks about things from her perspective is really important. So, and she also writes about like butch and femme relationships that are kind of like, you know, kind of, she dispels myths about that, which I think is good as well. Anyway, but there's a lot of other butch women. Gallus Meg, who runs the Gender Trender site, is also a butch lesbian. My friend Bev Jo, who I did a video with here a couple years ago, like little video interview, she's a butch woman as well. I think it's really important to like just make it clear that butch women are not the ones that are transitioning, you know, or electing to transition en masse. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but yeah, it's more of a problem with like femmes and androgynous women, and yeah, some of course some butch women do transition, but like it's not they're not gonna disappear, you know what I mean? Like, you know, And though I do think now, although I shouldn't say they're not going to disappear, because in my notes here I do have that, I do see now though that like butch girls are being kind of transitioned by their lesbian hating families. And the fact that like childhood transition is becoming a thing, you know, this is going to definitely impact girls who don't want to be feminized more than like the rest of girls. It's definitely scary, it's definitely a problem. So, I mean, I am concerned about it, but in terms of adults electing to do this stuff, it's mainly femmes. Let's see. And the other thing I wanted to say that, you know, some butch women have chosen through history and even now to pass as male for a lot of reasons. One thing is better paying jobs, which means freedom. Also needing to provide, you know, for other lesbians as well. Especially back before, like, you know, lesbians could be out. A lot of the time, butches would pass as male and get like blue collar working class jobs, and that paid well so that they could provide for themselves and their lovers. It was important, you know. And also just for safety reasons too, you know. If you're a girl or if you're a woman that is like looking or not wearing women's clothing, not you know, doing what women are supposed to do, you know, it's very dangerous for you. So in order to, you know, just feel comfortable and safe, a lot of them have passed for male, you know, or lived as male in men's world. And I don't think that should be some sort of indictment against, you know, butch women. It's definitely like been something that they've had to do because society is so awful to lesbians. So nevertheless, you know, whatever all of that, but they were and are still women when they do this. Like, and I think it's important to have compassion for women who felt like they've had to do that. You know, it's an indictment against society. It should never be an indictment against women that are doing it. It's like, to me, it's like the same thing as like giving prostitutes shit, you know? Like, why would you dump all of this crap onto them when it's society that's the problem? But yeah, so feminists who would have no problem, or who could see like, oh, you can't be like dumping on and shaming women for the choices they make, you know, to sleep with men for resources, you know, would turn around and like, you know, make fun of and ostracize and act as though a butch woman choosing to pass as male somehow is like selling out the sisterhood or something, you know. They do it for survival, at least historically and even today, you know. It's for survival, it's for ease of life and safety. So yeah, I guess, I mean, that's all I have in my notes. I just want to wrap up by saying that I think butch women should be given the same care and attention that femme women receive within the feminist and the lesbian feminist movement, and that ultimately butch oppression harms all of us. You know, butch women are like kind of this barometer almost for like, you know, how far women are allowed to go, you know, and if women can't go that far, well then, you know, it is harmful to us. You know, we need to be able to be free. And, you know, even though it does harm all of us, it definitely hurts them more. So just, I think, maybe think about this a little bit more clearly and understand that, like, you know, this isn't about gender identity, it isn't about role playing, it's not about like not identifying with womanhood in any way. It's just a material reality. Some women are butch. It's a way of being a woman. And you know, butch women are female, therefore they are feminine, you know, ultimately, you know, in terms of being actually related to femaleness. So, you know, I don't like the butch hate, and I don't like butch oppression, and I just see example of it over and over and over again, and I wanted to say something on my channel about it. So yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like my content, please subscribe. If you have more to add to this conversation, please leave a comment, and please check out all my links. Okay, I think I've done the appropriate YouTuber outro. Thanks for watching, and yeah, support butch women. Thanks.